Hi Seagull class, here's your read aloud from Legends of the Seminoles, as told by Betty Mae Jumper and illustrated by Guy LaBree. And today we'll start with the story called Crows. Here's a beautiful illustration. There's lots of color. Lachi. The crows always want something they shouldn't want. My grandfather used to call them stealers of the corn. Grandmother would put up blankets and old clothes that would flap in the wind to scare the crows away from the corn. Once, among all the flying birds in the beautiful forest were two special birds. They had very colorful feathers that shone brightly under the sun as they flew around. All of the other birds admired and envied them, and the songs they sang were out of this world. When these birds sang, the others in the forest would quiet down just to listen to them. Well, one day, as these two birds were flying around, they saw a strange thing coming up in the air, which was not a cloud. They looked and looked from up in the air, but they couldn't make out what it was. One said to the other, "Let us fly a little ways further and see what it is." "I'm scared," said the other, but he followed his friend halfway to the strange thing. Then both stopped in a tree and looked and looked. "What is that orange color below? And that strange black color going into the air?" said the one bird, begging his friend to go closer. So they flew right to the edge of where the forest was burning, something the birds had never seen before. They sat a long time watching it. Then one bird said, "Let us fly to that black tree and see the burning from the top." The other said, "No, let us go back. We have seen enough." But the other kept it up, wanting to fly to the top of the trail of the tall black tree. As usual, he won the argument, and they flew to the top of the tree and tried to sit on a limb. But the limb broke, and the birds fell to the ground, into the black soot, which burned their beautiful feathers into charcoal. And their voices were gone. They couldn't get any sound out until one day they learned to say, "Caw, caw." And for this they were ashamed and never returned to the beautiful forest that they once knew. This next one is called The Deer Girl. Here's the illustration. You can see a skirt on the trunk below, behind the deer. Maybe that was her skirt when she was a girl. Oh, you can also see some beautiful egrets in the background. The deer has the most beautiful eyes. When I was chairman of the Seminole tribe, my husband found a little fawn while he was hunting and brought it to me. It was Bambi, and she lived with us for many years. I would never go hunting for deer. I was always too partial to animals. Even a little bird I wouldn't kill. When the hunters would bring the deer home, I wouldn't look at it. I ate deer meat when I was a little girl, but I would never eat it now. A big dance and gathering was being held near the big forest. These dances were held for 4 days and 4 nights. Everyone got all dressed up and made their camp near the dancing area. The first night, the big dance began with all the people dancing. There came beautiful girls with the most beautiful eyes. Every Indian there was watching her dance. She was perfect with her steps as she danced with her turtle shells. Before the end of the last dance, she disappeared into the darkness, just before daybreak. On the second night, she appeared again in her beautiful clothing. One of the braves began to dance with her. He got in front and she followed. For 2 nights, they danced till almost daybreak. But then she disappeared during the last dance. No one knew which clan or camp she was from. People began questioning each other about her. Even the brave who danced with her had questions. She only told him that she had come to the big dance to enjoy dancing and wanted to keep on dancing, and to only disappear after the last dance of the night. On the last night of the gathering, the brave knew that he had to talk to her. This was his last chance to express himself to her. He wanted to tell her how much he liked her and that he wished to marry her. So he went to the girl and told her how beautiful he thought she was, how her eyes would shine when she talked. He had never seen any girl with such beautiful eyes. But her answer was, "I can't marry you. I'm different from you." "From what chickie do you come?" She answered, "I don't live in a chickie." And she would give him no other real answers to his questions. As the night was ending, he began to worry more and more about the girl with the beautiful eyes. As dawn drew near, she began to move away from him. Again, she went into the darkness. Only this time, he followed her. She disappeared too fast, and by this time the sun came, the young man was alone in the forest. Then he saw a fawn, a young deer, standing there looking at him. And on the fawn he saw those beautiful eyes that he had seen on the girl. He knew then why she said she would never marry him. Swiftly this young doe disappeared into the thickness of the big forest. When you look at the eyes of a deer, they are beautiful. So that story didn't have a lesson or tell us where something came from. I guess it explains the eyes of the deer, but that might be fun to write stories about if a plant or an animal were a human and how they would interact with other humans, kind of like the corn lady. Okay, here's the next story, The Eagle. 1. which makes me think there must be more than one eagle story. Here's the illustration. You see a man riding on the eagle, and then up above them in the clouds looks like a nest, and the man is holding some sticks. We used to see the bald eagle every once in a while. It's a big, beautiful bird, but the Seminoles are kind of superstitious about it. To us, the eagle is a rare bird with a lot of power that could cause you trouble. The Seminoles don't wear the eagle feathers like the Indians out west. Every tribe has a different belief about this. To us, the panther was the strong medicine. One day, a man went out hunting and killed a deer. As he was skinning his kill, he heard noises up in the sky. There he saw a big bird flying around. Quickly, he dragged the deer under the log to hide it. But the eagle was so large it came down, moved the log, and carried off both the deer and the hunter to her nest. The little birds in the eagle's nest began eating the deer, but had nothing to do with the hunter. Every time the mother eagle brought back kill, the hunter would tear off part of the meat for himself and dry it out to eat. He found water where rain fell in. All the while, the mother eagle was perched up on the mountain above, watching her chicks grow bigger and bigger. Soon, it was time for Mother to teach her young chicks to fly. At that point, the hunter realized that one day the birds would all leave the nest. He wondered what would happen to him. There were days when the mother came back less and less to the nest. This was because her chicks were now grown and ready to leave the nest. The hunter took out a rope that he had hidden. When the time came for the chicks to leave, he tied the rope around one bird by the neck. When the bird took off to fly, the hunter jumped on its back, and away they flew. He also had a stick to hit the bird with, so he could go down. When they reached an area the hunter recognized, he hit the bird hard on his head so that it would land. After the hunter jumped off, he told the bird to go, but he had to push on the bird until it got up and flew away. The hunter then walked until he came upon the camp where he lived. Everyone was surprised to see the hunter again. They had thought that he had been killed when he never returned from his hunting trip. He took them back to the tall tree to show them where he had been all this time. Here's the eagle too. So here's the illustration for the second story about the eagle. Eagle is a big bird with beautiful colors on his feathers. When he flies, he spreads his wings and glides along with the wind. He glides along as if he owns the world. The eagle lays her eggs high up in the trees and feeds the young only what she kills, never wasting kill. This bird earned its respect from the Indians. Eagle feathers are displayed with pride by Indian dancers from other tribes. Tales about eagles have been told in many ways by different tribes. This particular story was told to me by an elder of the Seminole tribe when I was a girl. Once, there were children out playing in an open field near where the eagles lived. The children saw a big bird flying around them, so they all ran for cover. Everyone except one little boy. The big bird came down and picked him up. As the bird flew higher and higher, the little boy began to cry. No one on the ground knew what to do. Then 2 teenage boys said that they knew where the eagle's nest was. In the meantime, the boy had been dropped in the nest. The young eagles in the nest looked at the little boy and began pecking at him. He stopped crying and began to pat them on their heads. The little birds liked him and soon quit pecking at him. Mother Eagle noticed that the little boy had lived through 2 days. The chicks did not care to eat him, so Mother went hunting again for something that they would eat. While Mother was away, the 2 teenagers climbed until they reached the top of the hill. As they were getting ready to climb onto the tree, the mother eagle returned. Afraid that they might get killed, the teenagers stopped and waited on a big rock where they slept till the next day. When the boys awoke on the next day, they noticed the mother eagle was getting ready to go hunting again. After she flew off, the boys hurried to the tree where the nest was. In the nest, they found the little boy sitting with the chicks. They quickly picked up the little boy and slid down the rope that they had tied. Off they went to return the little boy back to his family. Remember, the eagle is a strong bird that can pick up anything, even if it is heavy. Never underestimate what an eagle can do. I think that story was to teach a lesson, but I don't know if it was a metaphor. A metaphor means when something is a symbol for another thing, like, for instance, when the girl was actually a deer, that was a metaphor. But this, it seems like it just means to be careful about the eagles. So there must have been real danger. I'll read one more story. These are short. This next one is called Gray Bear. Here's the illustration. By just looking at this illustration, I wonder what you think this story could be about. This was told to me by my grandmother, Mary Tiger. The bear was the biggest animal in the woods, and there were a lot of them around in those days. Every once in a while, my uncles would go hunting for bear, and we'd have a nice warm rug to sleep on. Remember to never put salt on bear meat. Seminoles say he'll come get you if you do. Once there lived an Indian man who loved to hunt and bring food for his new bride. Most of the time he would go with the hunters and hunt, but he would only stay away for a short time. One day, the man thought it would be good to take his new bride along so that he could hunt for a few weeks. She could dry or barbecue the meat as he brought it in. The hunting was good. After they had been there a week, they had so much meat that the man said to his wife, "If this keeps up, we can go home in another week or so." They both smiled to think that they didn't have to stay in the forest too much longer. Another week passed, and the wife began to act funny. When the man returned from each hunt, he noticed his wife would be all dressed up, like when they were married. At times she would act mad and didn't want to be around him. She was not as happy as before. He thought there must be something going on, so he pretended to be heading for the big forest. But he hid and turned back to watch her from a distance. She looked to make sure he was gone, and then put on her new clothes and fixed herself up. She headed for the other side of the big forest, and he followed. She then stopped by a big tree and stood. A big, gray, husky bear appeared. The big bear walked slowly towards her. Big Bear stood up beside her and pushed her. She flipped over, and suddenly there landed a beautiful lady bear, the same color as the big bear. The two gray bears started running and playing until they disappeared. The hunter returned to the camp and started packing all the meat he had and put it all in the canoe. She returned later that afternoon, thinking that she would beat him back. But surprise, there he was. The wife said she had gone for a walk. He then told her he hadn't gone hunting, but instead was watching her. "You can go on and do whatever you wish to do, because I am leaving in a few minutes. I'm already packed. You could go back to the village and have the medicine man doctor you up, but that is up to you." He continued to pack his things as she looked upon him. Without saying a word, she ran towards the big forest. As the man was going home, he passed through an open field, and there he saw the two bears roaming around. He knew then that she had chosen to stay with the bear. Oh, that's sad. I wonder what that story was to warn against. Can you think of what it might be? Maybe it had something to do with salting the bear meat, but maybe it had something to do with keeping your word or telling the truth. I don't know. Maybe you can tell me. I'll read the next story tomorrow, The Hunter and the Beautiful Girl. I'll let you see the illustration now, and you can try and think about what this will be about. You can tell the sun is setting through my window because it's getting darker down here. So tomorrow we'll read The Hunter and the Beautiful Girl.